Joining us now are Nathan Willigar, the CISO for the state of Maine, and Charles Rote, the deputy CISO for the state of Maine. Nathan, Charles, thanks for being here. How's it going?
Going very well. Thank you.
Yeah, doing good. Thanks for having us.
Of course, super excited for this talk. So we're going to talk about how ransomware is changing and has changed in kind of recent memory. There's a lot going on in the world and a lot going on in cybersecurity that changes how folks are dealing with ransomware. So let's kind of dive in with that as a starting point. So Nathan, I'm going to throw to you first, and then if you want Charles to go, I'll have you throw to him. How has ransomware changed in recent years from your perspective in the state of Maine, and how have government agencies like yours kind of changed to adapt to those changes?
Well, if you look back in previous years, pre 2001 and stuff, ransomware has really been, large attacks and double extortion. Now, since 2001 and on, ransomware has moved more of like triple extortion. And that's where they're having DDoS attacks happening, stealing the data, encrypting it. But also now they're kind of being creative and they're contacting regulatory bodies about the incident before it's even in public of, as a fear of saying, give us give us the money, or we're going to leak this data. And you're seeing that, and I'm fearful for the future because now you look at what's happening over with geopolitical tensions in Ukraine. You're starting to see wipers, which is more dangerous even ransomware. And so I think that's changing. What I think in the future you need to be prepared to, especially for states, is be ready, putting the mechanisms to be ready for that bad day. And having that breach coach, having that incident response, having that negotiator in place, so you're not scrambling, so you can be faster. And because right now it's all about speed, and that's what we need. Charlie?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So they're leveraging the data to try and compel people to pay when previously they had backup so that they could recover their own data. So now they're using extortion to compel agencies to pay the money. One interesting phenomenon, which I think is rather recent, is that especially when you're talking about ransomware as a service, it's operating like a business enterprise. And as such, they've got some sort of self-preservation in mind. And I think the crackdown with law enforcement has caused some of them to reevaluate who they're necessarily targeting. And there are known instances where when governmental data is being taken, that those agencies are then notified that, yeah, we got your data, but we're not going to do anything about it. Now, I don't think that we should be necessarily trustworthy of these type of adversaries that have this data, but it is an interesting aspect to it. And as Nate talked about, really, it's focusing on those capabilities to recover. So we all know that it's not if, it's when you're going to have that data incident. So that being said, you've got to have the skills and tools and resources available for that response mechanism.
So go ahead, Nathan. Yeah, please.
I just might add, one of the things to be more proactive is really taking a hard look at your priority intelligence requirements and looking at what you're trying to protect. And so knowing your adversary and the behaviors and motives that they're after, you can tailor your protection. So I would encourage anybody to put more resources behind threat intelligence, because that's very helpful for your preparedness.
Yeah, and so kind of just following right up on that, right? With things like wipers out there, with the leaking, of that data on the rise. I mean, what are the main areas that you guys as a CISO team are looking to bring the fight to? How are you combating this threat to make sure that you're as safe as you can be before, and in some cases after an attack?
I'll jump in. I think this is kind of it's all about partnerships in cybersecurity. So we're strengthening our partnerships, both private and public. We have a stronger partnership than we ever have internally in the state of Maine. We work our Maine Emergency Center. We work at our fusion centers. we're talking with our National Guard and having that partnership, and even out broader in the region and throughout the United States. Having that partnership to have that quicker response and sharing information is critical. I think it's also taking a look at and looking at your attack surface, what you have. I don't want to always buy tools because that's not always the right thing to do. But I mean, really understanding your assets is definitely critical, especially your perimeter and knowing that's out there. Because as you probably well aware, there has been a rise on 0-day vulnerabilities, and so making sure you know what's there so you can react faster is definitely helpful.
Yeah, and in addition to what Nate had, you talking about what do we focus on, and Nate's done a really good job on identifying the need for that identity and users are the perimeter of your network, as opposed to thinking that it's an appliance like a firewall or something of that nature. So things that he's getting at are security culture, right? And that training and awareness aspect of the users, as well as identity. So protecting that identity is exceptionally key. Implementing things better than logins and passwords, getting at MFA, single sign-on, things of that nature that protect the identity and the users, because that's the foothold that almost every one of your attacks is going to come from.
And so, when we kind of put this all together, right, we talk about the things that we have to do to be prepared for this, the things we have to build internally to sort of bring the fight to those specific threats. I mean, that entails putting together kind of a security culture strategy, right? I mean, how does that look for the two of you in Maine? And Nathan, why don't you get us started?
Yeah, so Charlie and I put a lot of focus on the past year with security culture. We know that's the foundation to make everything um, to be effective within the state. So we just wrapped one up. We have 4 pillars that we look at for our security culture. First one is setting the foundation, being a proactive security culture. And what we mean by that is, really establishing a foundation with a leadership commitment with the administration, promoting our security mission and vision with the state, enhancing our communications and transparency with our users. That's both from a management standpoint and employees. Obviously, within security, you need to be baking into the business operations. So enhancing our planning and program alignment to the business objectives, and then just embracing the pace of change with culture. It changes so fast, and so we just need to recognize that and be prepared to move fast. The second pillar that we look at is the human element and shared responsibilities. We have an information security office within the state of Maine. There's a number of us that do this on a daily basis, but this is just totally not us. And so we need to work with the agencies and the agency heads and commissioners to start to build that security mindset in the workforce. And to have them in the forefront of security of, if I click on this link, what is this going to do? Or if I want to deploy this technology, what is that going to do to the environment? Instill risk awareness as well. That's a big thing. Taking a look and looking at the risk. Building security into the life cycle, the employee life cycle. So starting from day one, somebody hires, we need to be building security in. And then fostering a safe and open communication for security reporting. We want to be, we recognize that people make mistakes. We know that mistakes happens, but let's report it as soon as you can, and we'll help address it. The other pillar we focus on is cultivate behavioral change and security awareness. So we need to embrace security behavior characteristics. And that's being vigilant. That's also looking at risk management, making good management decisions, and looking at the risk. Continuous security campaign, that's another thing within an objective we have, is constantly having fresh content and keeping up with the threats. Even role-based security training. Role-based security training needs to be fresh and up to date because you have incident responders, you have security analysts, You have even management that has a responsibility. And then fostering collaboration and partnerships. We need to encourage sharing of security across both departments and agencies. One of the things that we're going to be kicking off that we'd like to do is having a security champions program with our department. So, it's just a security team, but we're building that buy-in throughout the agencies and departments. And then working with our external partners. So that's a lot of things that we're kind of doing to start building that security culture. And once we have this right and we're reflected on it, everything else will come: resources, funding, the security tools that we need.
Yeah, and then nothing that Nate rattled off is easy, right? Like it's hard going and it's slow, changing culture. And like Nate articulated, a lot of the key avenues of approach here is leveraging those advocates in the agency and trying to shift what the Information Security Office does, or how it delivers security services. In that, normally what happens is, oh, here comes security. What are they going to tell me what I can't do, right? Like trying to get out of that business where your information security professionals are the police, right? We need to establish in metrics and processes, and even the controls that we start to in place controls in such a way that it is very mindful of the business, right? It is intuitive what the business value is and what you're implementing. That the cost of information security is significantly less than the cost of an average data breach in the United States, and that's like at the macro level. But even at the micro level, like implementing a simple key, that single sign-on, that's high on the security, and yet for user behavior as well, and ease of user behavior helps business function. So it's challenging, and we talk about it, it's academic, we're trying to get at it, but it's exceptionally challenging to accomplish, and we have a lot of exciting opportunities in the coming year to get at that.
That's huge. I mean, I think that the thing that stands out to me about that approach and all four of those pillars, Nate and Charlie, sort of that optimism of what we can get done in the year. I mean, what really stands out to me is just the focus on people and the focus on kind of the humanity of it all. Because it really, too often are these things saying, okay, we're going to send people to all of these trainings, we're going to do all these things, but not really thinking about that end user, not really thinking about what that looks like for that individual person. And instead of just throwing tools or trainings at the problem, you're really thinking about like, what does that culture look like, right? I think that's really cool. I got just a couple minutes left here, but I want to ask, we when we've chatted before, we talked a little bit about kind of what this Gen AI moment that we're in right now, what that means. Obviously, it's a massive buzzword in our community. It's certainly active in the ransomware and the cyber world as well. Generative AI, it's been referred to as a boon to the defender. It's also been referred to as a boon to the attacker. But what does the pace of adoption mean when we're talking about something like generative AI? I mean, government has a tendency, as we've talked about for many years, to move slower and to adopt slower. What are some of the impacts that kind of approach has here when we're talking about Gen AI?
Charles, I'll let you start, and then I'll add to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So what you cite is definitely a problem with state governments. We're entrusted with protecting citizen data, and we're obviously beholden to a lot more regulations than a malicious actor is, right? But the state has been using artificial intelligence, not generative AI, but artificial intelligence for years now, right? Like we use our robotic processes and things of that nature. And what we're really contending with is the generative nature of artificial intelligence. I think it is at the top of the hype cycle, right? Most research that I'm currently reading talks to the fact that it's expensive to deploy at scale, and it's got a lot of challenges with regards to security, especially where your data is hidden and how your access control is. So the way that you safely implement generative AI at speed is going to be by having that data classification and access control in the environment before you start introducing widely generative AI processes, and take a very deliberate process to determine where you're going to implement generative AI. And I would say that in the Security Operations Center, generative AI has a lot of potential, right? When you talk about mundane tasks that are done over and over and over again and human fatigue, generative AI is designed, built to do that kind of stuff. So I'm very excited for it, but deploying it enterprise-wide, that's a huge undertaking and is going to have to be done with care. If you're relying on even to a somewhat of an extent on security through obscurity, generative AI is going to blow the doors off that wide. So you need to be cautious on having your data and you classified appropriately and your access controls set before you start implementing that enterprise-wide.
I'll just add, one of the things that we did that we got some attention is we put a moratorium in regarding generative AI with the state of Maine. And we did that on purpose to try to get our arms around the governance that we would have. We have since lifted that moratorium, and we do have a governance framework. But I want to mention to this, especially with security, that generative AI and AI is moving such at a rapid pace that our governance needs to be a fluid governance at this point. We cannot be have it being stagnant. So we're constantly over the last few months been making changes based on realities, and this is what's happening across all states. They're all facing this because the federal government's moving at a rapid pace, the industry is moving, so we need to keep up with that and being able to make changes to be effective to block those attacks when they come.
That's great. Such an interesting time to be in cybersecurity, whether you're in the state of Maine or anywhere else in the country or the world. Nate, Charlie, it's been a blast chatting with you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks a lot, Jake. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
And to our audience, there's so much more to come from today's Cybersecurity Modernization Summit, so stay tuned.